Hey everybody, it's Brian Asbury, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you could, like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow the Developmentally Speaking brand. Today, my guest is a world traveled professional wrestler, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Jindrak. Mark, how's it going?
Hey, good man, good. Thank you for having me on the program.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody else. What made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Um, I was always an athlete. I always considered myself an all-around athlete growing up, through baseball, basketball, football. But I watched wrestling as a kid. I watched wrestling growing up, the era of uh, like the Hulk Hogan's, the Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Junkyard Dog, like the mid '80s, the late '80s. And I kind of slipped out of it a little bit, as I got into my teens. But then I ultimately got back into it when I, was a young adult and had I was tall, I was 6'6", so I just had an athletic frame, so that made me want to get into it. I unfortunately I didn't make it a pro in basketball, but I made it pro in wrestling, so I'll take it.
So, at what point did you decide that this was going to be what you were going to do?
Um, I in between my sophomore and junior year, I played college basketball. It was a Division III school, a school called Cayuga. It's in like upstate New York, near Rochester, New York. Um, I spent some time in Orlando between my sophomore and junior year. Lived with some friends that were starting their career, ex-teammates on basketball, and that's when I found out about the power plant. There was a friend of mine named Barry Houston. Long story short, like one night, I was living in Orlando for the summer, just spending time with them. I got a job working at Denny's. I was waiting tables as a young guy at Denny's, and just to make some money on the side, you know, and I worked the graveyard shift, so it was late at night, and just one night, two wrestlers came in. One was Alex Wright, and the other was Barry Houston. And they used to film. WCW used to film down at Universal Studios in Orlando. They did their smaller TV shows, and those guys came in that night. I didn't talk to really Alex Wright much, but I had more of a conversation with throughout the night. I was waiting on them, and he told me about wrestling, and I said, no, I play basketball and stuff. He's like, you have a pretty good frame. You should. So he's just real conversational. But they left, and later that night, strangely enough, I got held up at gunpoint. Like 4 in the morning, I got held up at gunpoint. Two guys came in, robbed the cash register. I was like the only person in there working besides the chef and the dishwasher. And after I filled out the police report, I went back to my apartment complex where my friends lived, where I was just staying with them for the summer. And instead of waking my friends up, because they had to get up, it was like already like 5:30 in the morning. I figured I'd just go to the community pool and just hang out there and see what was going on. Just sit in a hot tub or something, and lo and behold, my friend Barry, who I just made, the wrestler, he was dating a girl in that same apartment complex. So I told him what had happened. I got robbed, and he had a couple drinks, and he's like, oddly enough, he's like, man, Mark, that could have been bad, like it just goes to show you in life can be short. Why don't you consider, or consider trying out the power plant? And I was like, I don't know. That's a big decision. That's a big leap of faith. He goes, I'll tell you what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, well, I have to, the police are going to come and do I had to help them do like a drawing, the composite drawing of like the thieves, what they're wearing, their facial features, skin tone and everything. And, I said, besides that, nothing. He goes, why don't you, as my guest, come down to Universal Studios? I'll let you ride with me, and I just introduced you to people, some wrestlers. And I was like, okay. So he took me down to Universal Studios. I met everybody from what was crazy was WCW at the time, all the ex-WWF stars signed later in their career with WCW. Guys like Henning, Ravishing Rick Rude, Bruce the Barber Beefcake, as another character. Virgil was there. So I got a chance to meet all these guys. I met Goldberg as a rookie. I met Booker T and Stevie Ray, Harlem Heat. So it blew me away. And so I met all these guys, and I decided not to hang around because I just felt like I was, not one of the boys yet,
Yeah.
So I left, and leaving, the cherry on top of the sundae was Macho Man pulled up in his Mercedes, and he rolled down his window, and he looked at me, and he goes, "Oh, I thought you were Alex Wright," in his voice. And so I got a chance to say hello to him, and that was like my experience, and that made me decide to like say the hell with school my junior year, and I was going to try out the power plant, which I did. I tried out the power plant months later, and I made it, and pretty much the rest is history, So I didn't have that deep dying wish to be a wrestler like a lot of guys did. I was just an athlete. I had a love for wrestling, but it came back all at once in those 24 hours. So that's ultimately what made me become a wrestler.
Now, was the power plant as brutal as everyone says it is?
It was hard. When to get in, it was hard. Those first few days in the tryout were, man, really, really difficult. I was lucky to have, like, I was a big guy, but I was very like I had a lot of endurance, agility. So I always prided on being an athlete and keeping my cardio really well and stuff. So that was important because they try to break you that way, make it physically impossible to continue, and then guys just quit. Like in my tryout, like 25 guys tried out. I want to say around 25, and like by end of day one, there was only like 3 guys left, myself and 2 others, and those guys never really continued, never really made it on TV. So it was like I was very fortunate, and I passed a great test with that tryout. But it was the first few weeks are tough. Getting adjusted to taking bumps, and you get headaches all the time, and hitting the ropes. Those ropes aren't as forgiving as people think.
Get that bruising on the back.
Yeah. So yes, it was brutal, but I was young, in shape, and you gotta have heart. You had to have heart. Anyone who moved to the power plant had heart and desire.
Now, how long did you train down there before you started making appearances on WCW TV?
Well, strangely enough, like actually wrestling on like the Saturday night show and stuff, that took a little bit of time. I want to say like 6 months to 6 to 9 months maybe. But appearances, here's what happened. When I went to the power plant one day, like Terry Taylor came down, and he pointed to me. I want to say another one was like Elix Skipper, Mike Sanders, and they said, "Hey, do you guys want to come and do TV security every Monday and Tuesday, Nitro and Thunder." Thunder was taped on Tuesday. Do you guys want to come and do TV security? And of course we obliged. So a lot of times, for the people, my family members that saw me make that jump, quit school and try to become a wrestler, this was like a satisfaction for me because like I got to be in like cool vignettes and backstage things. Like one of the first things that happened to me, like Hulk Hogan was backstage and he beat up some security guys. I was one of those guys. And it sounds minuscule, like, oh, I was just TV security. You weren't doing nothing. But on the real, like for my family to see me on TV, like laid out, they knew something was coming. Like, oh, he must be training and he must be part of the show. So
yeah.
So that kind of made it worth it. So within months, I think that was within 3 to 4 months when I first got the power plant. And what was cool was we got paid like a few $100s a day too. So, so that was awesome as well. So I was able to train. I was able to make a little money on the side, and then meeting all these guys. Like every Monday, I'd see guys at the hotel, in the bar. Like I was I think I was probably about 20 years old, maybe 21. Got to meet and got to have conversations with all these guys like Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, guys that I had grown up watching. So that was like the best of all.
Oh yeah, and being so young, you get to soak up. It was very surreal just seeing everybody at that young of the age and just taking it all in.
Oh, absolutely. Like if the fondest memories, like it was to be that young and just have everything kind of fall into place. It was, it was a lot of hard work, but looking back on it, it was, just today, like I text Alan Funk, an old guy at the power plant, and Sonny
Mm-hmm.
Siaki at the power plant, from the power plant. Just say, hey, what's up? How you doing? And when I text Alan Funk, he was like, I'm doing good, man. Like I talked to Chuck this past Wednesday, Chuck Palumbo.
Mm-hmm.
So we all try to keep in touch and stuff, and always try to see how each other is doing, because that bond is, no matter if after WCW closed we went separate ways,
Mm-hmm.
like Sonny Siaki went to TNA, Alan Funk did some TNA I think too, Elix Skipper as well, but like Chuck did WWE, myself, Johnny the Bull,
Mm-hmm.
so Stamboli, so we keep in touch, and it was just fun. And what was great about it is all these guys that you join the power plant with, the Mike Sanders, these are guys that you keep in touch with forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Now,
was like when you made friends with them, when we all started getting on TV, WCW TV, all at the same time, that brotherhood made it even easier.
mm-hmm.
Like it's almost, I always say it's like starting a first day of school. Would you rather start first day of school by yourself or
Mm-hmm.
with like 7 of your friends that you
Oh
grew
yeah,
up with, in the business? And so that was, for us, it was extra. It was easier. It was much easier.
oh yeah. Now, when you graduated the power plant, was there any plans for you? Like, how did that work with WCW? Was there any
Um,
plans of just
like
what they
it
wanted you
wasn't
to
like an
do?
official like graduation per se. It's just like your trainers, like Sarge
Mm-hmm.
and Paul Orndorff at the time. They're the ones that they deem if you're ready or not, and
Mm-hmm.
then they let the office know, the higher ups, like, hey, these guys are ready. And in our case, like they kind of made it a gimmick out of it, like bring them all on TV as like the power plant guys, the natural born thrillers they called us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that, like, basically when you were ready or you graduated, that's when you started getting on TV. So and for some it was Saturday night TV that we did
Mm-hmm.
tapings every so often. Sometimes it was straight to Nitro, or Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, it was myself and Sean O'Hara as a partner. We broke onto the scene. I think we did like one of those Saturday morning TV shows, taped, um, and then they eventually broke us out on Nitro.
Mm-hmm. Now, the time you were on TV full time, WCW wasn't around much longer.
No,
Uh-huh.
like my first big TV appearance was June 26th, year 2000, and that
Mm-hmm.
was Nitro. Sean O'Hara and I, we wrestled Juventud Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, and we got the victory that night. That was June 26th, 2000. And they closed down, like, I want to say like January, February, March of 2001, possibly,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around there, maybe April. I don't know, but no, I think it was like, yeah, early April or late March of 2001. So yeah, gosh, 9 months maybe, of being in WCW. But that was enough. A lot of people diss Vince Russo and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'll never have any bad words for him, because he gave us an opportunity, and that opportunity of like 9 months of TV time,
Mm-hmm.
that like gave us a chance to get picked up right away by WWE. They saw enough in us to say, hey, let's take a chance on these young guys. So that was cool.
How long? Yeah, when they picked you up, how long was it between the doors closing and then WWE reaching out, or was it just
Doors closed.
immediate?
I remember we were home. We were at home for a few weeks, and then they signed like 10 of us right away.
Mm-hmm.
It was like me and Stasiak and Palumbo and O'Hare, Stacy Keebler, Shane Helms, Hugh Morris, I think Mike Awesome, Lance Storm,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe Booker T was part of that as well. I'm not sure. But that was like the invasion, and they all flew us to our first like WWE appearance was in the stands in WrestleMania 17, and that was
Mm-hmm.
in Houston in the Astrodome. So that was like the introduction. And then I think weeks later, or a short time after that, then we started doing the invasion angle, invading
Hmm.
and stuff. So
Now you were a part of that for a little bit before developmental,
for
right?
a
Yeah.
little bit, and like the thing that hurt us was we were still, like I said, I only been on WCW television for a short period of time, so WWE, knowing that we were young, it wasn't really a big rush, so they
Hmm.
sent us to OVW, or well, first to Heartland HCW,
Hmm.
and then eventually they moved us over to OVW, where there was like kind of bigger talent,
Hmm.
like the John Cena's, the Brock Lesnar's, the Batistas, the Ortons, the Basham brothers were there, Nick Densmore, which went on to become Eugene,
Hmm.
Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin, me and O'Hare, John Heidenreich was there. I'm probably leaving out Victoria Girl, um, Jackie Gata, so like there were the next like several years of stars there, the talent, young
Hmm.
talent. So we it was a cool camp to be in OVW there, and we did shows all over,
Hmm.
Kentucky and Tennessee and different places, so that was kind of cool.
No, what was the main difference between Cincinnati and Louisville? Because you weren't
Uh,
in Cincinnati very long.
I felt like Cincinnati was almost like if you were to have like say let's say um, WWE was the majors.
Hmm.
I felt like OVW was the AAA,
Hmm.
and I mean, and HCW was like double A, like one level, minor leagues, but one level below.
Hmm.
Like I felt like if they're taking you seriously, they were going to get you on that OVW television,
Hmm.
and then eventually from OVW over to WWE. But some people did. I can't. There was guys that obviously were in HCW that made it, but it just
Hmm.
felt like OVW was more of a
Hmm.
direct link.
Now, was there during your time in OVW, was there any plans for you, or did they just start seeing what they had?
Uh, yeah, I mean, like when I was in OVW there for a while, evolution was in the works, the
Hmm.
plans, the thought process. Um, also Garrison Cade and I were tag team also on Jim Cornette's television program, so that had a little bit of organic beginning to it as well. But
Hmm.
like basically that was evolution was the main thing eventually. And then when that got canceled for me, Vince McMahon gave me the tag team partner with Garrison Cade, which
Hmm.
felt natural because we had that beginning in OVW.
Hmm. You got to work with Kenny Bolin a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But like Kenny Bolin, I'm not a huge fan of Kenny Bolin.
Hmm.
Like that basically was Jim Cornette. Basically, for me, it was like every guy. Jim Cornette, when he knew someone was getting called up for TV,
Hmm.
he would it would kill him because he couldn't use you really on his TV show very heavily because he's huge on the storylines, but as soon as we get moved up, we want to get the hell out of Louisville.
Yeah.
Nothing against Louisville, but like your ultimate goal is to go. Like I had a house in Atlanta, so I wanted to get away from Louisville and go back home to Atlanta,
Hmm.
fly out of Atlanta and start my career per se and get out of the minor leagues. So um, that Jim Cornette kind of any tag team that was or singles guy that was going to get moved up to the TV or move out of Louisville, usually he put us with Kenny Bolin. But Kenny Bolin will take credit for it. Like
Oh, of course he
he,
will.
he was the man that put us on team. Like so,
He put all these stars on TV.
yeah, he takes credit for all that. Like, but it was just a purgatory until we got moved up, and Cornette didn't want to put you on heavily on his team or his TV because he knew you were gone. So.
Hmm. So you get on WWE TV, you do some tag teams for a while, and then you do your singles. How would you rate your WWE run?
Um, to be honest, I always called it mediocre.
Hmm.
I look back on it now, and um, it was mediocre. It wasn't like I'm not super down in the dumps. I wasn't like a jobber or
Hmm.
anything or enhancement talent, but I felt like I was in the middle of the pack, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Obviously with the evolution, that could have been a big feather in my cap.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever seen any of the documentaries, you know what happened with that. I was kind of too mature for Orton, and I like to joke around a lot, and I think that hurt me
Mm-hmm.
and my chances. And they eventually put obviously Batista in my place, but like it was mediocre. Part of it was, well, I'm not gonna point fingers at anyone. I think it was mainly my
Mm-hmm.
blame. I didn't take the opportunity I had and run with it. And
Mm-hmm.
even when we were a tag team with Garrison Cade, like I still just my head wasn't fully into the game. And I still young, and from an athlete standpoint, like it was still in my mind. I was like, I'm a phenomenal athlete, so I'm always gonna have a place.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got released from WWE in 2005, and it was nothing personal, but like if people had to go, like in that, I think 27 people were let go. It was
Mm-hmm.
like the largest dumping of talent. It was July 5th. Like the Dudley Boys were involved in that
It's like
release.
they dubbed it like a Black Thursday or Friday where they
Pretty
just
much. In
yeah.
fact, it was the biggest release of talent
Mm-hmm.
until the pandemic release happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you anything. Like a lot of talent was let go, and um, I was caught in that, and so I call my WWE run lackluster. I look back, and then when I went on to um, Mexico and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that was like almost like a wake up call. Like, oh my God, like you just lost your WWE opportunity. Now what's out? Like, what is out there for you now in wrestling? And
Mm-hmm.
I tried to pan out a little bit, and that just wasn't that strong style wasn't my style. My
Yeah.
style was more like the aerial
Mm-hmm.
that favored more lucha libre, which
Mm-hmm.
lucha libre brought. So I had an easier transition going to lucha libre, even in terms of like the language. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like Spanish was gonna be an easier language to learn than Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, my style suited me better. So that was pretty much in a nutshell my decision to go to Mexico. And then there I had some success I wish I had more obtained in WWE, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say you had a career resurgence down in
Yeah,
Mexico. Like they love you down there.
yeah, they
So
love me.
how was that? Because you did a lot. You did. Were you on some soap operas and all that? Like
Yeah,
you did a lot.
yeah. I did a lot of stuff there, and because when I was in WWE, like I hung around the majority of my time, like on Raw when I was on Raw with Randy Orton,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously he had a huge amount of success. And then when I moved to SmackDown, my best friends on SmackDown were Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. I traveled with those guys on the road for
Mm-hmm.
this time I was on SmackDown. Um, so I saw success, like real true success firsthand, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously being in OVW with the Cenas and the Batistas and the Lesnars, those guys and Orton, those guys
Mm-hmm.
went on and had mega success,
Mm-hmm.
um, so when I went to Mexico and had a chance to do these things myself, like even bigger stuff, like a lot of the soap operas I was on were like #1 shows in
Mm-hmm.
Mexico. That'd be like, and I was a regular on those shows, so it was like, imagine like a John Cena being on, nightly episodes of Two and a Half Men, or
Mm-hmm.
like it was that type of television, huge. Um, so like I did that, and to the point where like I was more popular outside the ring than I was in the ring in lucha libre. So that was kind of a weird dynamic as well.
Yeah, I've always viewed you as that person and not like a former WWE superstar because you gained so much more success outside of that. Not a lot of people get that, but
Yeah,
you were a giant star outside of WWE. Like you didn't need that because of all your success in Mexico.
yeah, yeah. And I took it really seriously. When I moved to a foreign country,
Hmm.
I made sure that it was going to mean something. And I learned Spanish. I took Spanish very seriously, and just like the character Vampiro in the '90s hit in Mexico, like I kind of hit in the 2000s.
Hmm.
That was like my time, sort of say.
Oh yeah. What's Mark Jindrak up to today?
Well, I live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Hmm.
I haven't wrestled like in a year. I
Hmm.
did took some dates last year in Mexico. By days um I'm in the hobby of collecting cards and
Mm-hmm.
baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards, anything collectible really. But I'm a professional grader. I work at a company here called HGA, and I professionally grade cards. So that's kind of like a passion project. Lately, I've been getting into good shape again.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a resurgence. Like I kind of have an itch to take some more wrestling shows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but maybe that could see me wrestling more in United States. I don't know, So that's the one thing that I look back on and I have a little bit of regret. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have maybe cut Mexico a little earlier and come
Mm-hmm.
back and did some stuff in the United States. So that there's still more to. I think there's still more a chapter to write,
Oh yeah,
possibly.
I agree. 100% completely agree with that. Where can people reach out to you at?
Um, I gosh, I don't use social media a whole
Mm-hmm.
ton. On Facebook, I'm Mark R. Jindrak.
Mm-hmm.
On on Instagram, I want to say, I don't know what my handle is. I want to say it was like Marco Corleone 23.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm easy to find. If you type in Mark Jindrak, I'm sure my name will pop up. Marco Corleone 23. And then on Twitter, my handle's that might be Marco Corleone 23 or Jindrak 1. I think Jindrak 1. But like again, like these things are easy to find. But and so my main social media
Mm-hmm.
links you can find me.
Okay. If you had any advice you could give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
Um, keep your options open. A lot of people's dream is, especially when I was in WWE, the WWE was the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, TNA was kind of like blossoming a little bit, but for the most part, it was WWE, and that was it. To the
Mm-hmm.
point where they split it up into Raw and SmackDown, like two competing shows.
Yeah.
Inter competition. So my advice is, that may be the way to get to 10, 5+5, but
Mm-hmm.
know that there's other routes to get to 10, 8+2 and 7+3 and 6+4. And that could be like foreign lands like Mexico, Lucha Libre. That could mean working in Japan. That can mean other companies, AEW or Impact or whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
like if your dream is WWE, obviously strive for that, but like know that there's other avenues to get there. It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be directly WWE. In fact, sometimes you're better off making a name somewhere else and
Mm-hmm.
then going to WWE, or vice versa. Like sometimes people don't make it in WWE, but they have talent,
Mm-hmm.
and a company like upstart company like an AEW type they may see something in you and say, hey, you got star potential, like come with us and we'll make you a star. And then you kind of like jockey back and forth, depending. There's a lot of teams and wrestlers that came out of nowhere, like the MJFs.
Mm-hmm.
Like his WWE tryout and stuff, I guess didn't work out, but look at him in AEW,
Mm-hmm.
or like an Orange Cassidy and guys like that. So that's my advice: is keep your options open and know that whatever you're striving for isn't the end all be all. There's other ways of getting there. It doesn't always have to be 5+5.
Yep. Well, I just want to thank you for coming on today and talking a little bit about your career. I thank you for everything that you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do.
Oh man, well, same to you, man. Thank you for
Thank you.
covering wrestling and being a fan of wrestling, and that's important. Just as
Mm-hmm.
important that that people watch our content and
Mm-hmm.
have an opinion about it. That's such a big part. The internet is such a big part of wrestling
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. So thank you for what you do, and you keep up the good work, man.
Thank you. I appreciate your time today.